everybody, welcome to another edition of Calling All Devs, our weekly Q&A series where I take questions from you, the star citizen backer, and pose them directly to our developers, usually over Skype. We're going to get things started. We got two questions for our very own Rob Johnson at a Foundry 42 UK. Rob, how you doing, man?
Good, cheers, Gerard. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm back in the United States. You know, actually, I just realized I think I spent a week in Winslow last week and I never came by your desk. I apologize. I'm just realizing.
Next time.
Man. Well, I was sequestered. I spent most of the week. They hid me on the second floor because I had a terrible, terrible cold, and they're like, "We don't want you to get anybody sick." So I'm gonna say that's why I didn't visit, because I was protecting you.
Sounds like a good excuse to me.
And not because I spent an entire week running around like a madman. I forgot. All right. I got two questions. We're going to jump right into it. These are submitted by the backers. These are voted on by the backers. Right off the bat, is there any plan to make, and this person refers to them as aid shelters, around the moons that are useful for things like logging out in beds or whatever? It almost sounds like they're asking for rest stops as we know them on Earth, like little habs around there where you can log out or heal your character maybe or whatnot.
And there's nothing that's come through to me yet in terms of plans for that. However, we do have some interesting plans for player spawning going forward with the introduction of player hubs soon. We're going to need to look at switching up the player spawn logic in the PU a little bit. One thing we probably look at in future is like the ability to somehow kind of like rent different types of room. At the moment, when you spawn in a location in the PU, we're reliant on having enough bedrooms or slots at that location to fit the maximum number of players that could end up at that location in the universe. Right. So for something like aid shelters, if we didn't want 64 or more beds in an aid shelter, then we kind of need this other sort of spawning logic to come online first, and systems in place to allow us to map to just one specific bedroom within a spawn location. But I'm sure if that went into the game, went down well with the backers, then there'd be no reason why we couldn't look to then add locations within the universe that support spawning in sort of smaller numbers of players in more remote locations, for example.
Hey, you make a good point with the Olisar. Everybody's spawn room, even though they can't decorate anything, it's the first kind of basic form of player housing. There's one room for every player on these things. They're not instanced within the or in shards on the server. So for something like this, with the current design for that stuff, it would be like a 64-room like hotel. An aid shelter becomes, here's a hotel in the middle of on the surface of Yula, kind of stuff like that. So it's definitely something. I was talking with Todd earlier. Definitely something we're going to be pursuing. You'll learn more about player habs. You see them mentioned in ATV quite often. I would expect to learn a bit more about player habs in the coming weeks, without giving any specific details. But definitely something. I think we see how the player hab situation goes and how that develops, and then take the lessons we learn from there.
Yeah, it should be really interesting to see where it goes, because I think the spawning is just something that's sort of gradually evolved based on feedback and how the players have liked it. We've had various sort of things in the past, like sort of spawning in Grim Hex if you're a criminal, and now we're doing it more on the last location you sort of flew to, although we've added the bed spawning as well, so you can spawn in the bed. So it's kind of an ever evolving thing as we look to give you guys playing the game the best experience possible.
Well, that's the biggest advantage of running a live environment in the middle of our game development. We don't have to figure everything out ahead of time. We can take it to a step, and then we can put it out for you guys, and then you guys can, instead of us having to guess, you guys can just tell us. And show us how this works. All right, second question for you this week. Can we get better joystick and gamepad support? Right now, MOBIGLAS, terminals, and MFDs always require you to reach for the mouse. And turrets are almost impossible to use with stick control because of relative motion. I think he's stuck a second question in there about turrets right there. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take the turrets one because that's a bonus question. The turrets one, you'll see lots. You've seen lots of turret improvements on HEV week after week after week. We got our US1 gameplay feature team. That's one of their main primary focuses. So their work is not done, and their work is continuing on that stuff. So expect to see more and more continued turret improvements, including that of the controls as development goes forward. Now, that's because that was a bonus question. One topic per question, guys. So back to joystick and gamepad support for MOBIGLAS terminals and MFDs. What do you got, Rob?
Yeah, sure. That's something that's on our radar. We're definitely going to be looking at improving those parts of the game when it comes to the control devices that you can use for them. I think some of the reasoning maybe why they've been slightly under-supported to begin with is from a development perspective, it can sometimes make a bit more sense to make sure that we've got the features to a position where we feel like we're beyond sort of prototyping of how these sort of screens and things like that work. So once we're kind of comfortable with the actual features themselves working well, then we can look to expand the different ways to control these. It's always a big challenge with the gamepad, especially in terms of getting all the possible features controllable by that, because unlike mouse and keyboard, we have a lot less buttons and ways to control it. But it's definitely something we want to do. We want to be aiming towards being able to play the game, just using a joystick, just using a gamepad, so you can have just one experience where you're just holding one control device without having to switch to mouse and keyboard and fumble around just because you've done a certain control action. But it's definitely on our radar. We're looking at getting guys onto these issues over the next few releases. It's something that comes up in player feedback on the release builds we get now. So it's definitely at the front of our minds.
Yeah, I'm going to amend your statement a little bit. I'm going to say primarily with joystick or primarily with gamepad. I don't know that any aspect of Star Citizen will ever be completely 100% doable with one control scheme. If anybody who follows the project, who's followed the projects from the beginning, from the very first Hangar module, knows that our control scheme has evolved quite a bit. Many were the times where even just in the iterative patches, with like the 220 and the 221 and the 222, the control schemes would change even between those tiny iterations, and people are like, I just learned what the buttons are. That is one of the challenges of running a live environment in the middle of game development, is that we are constantly adjusting and working these things out. And when you work on features, while not everybody will have a gamepad, and not everybody will have a HOTAS or a dual stick setup or anything, we do know that everybody playing Star Citizen has a mouse and keyboard. So it makes sense to, as we're developing, as we're figuring out where all the menus go and all the options go and how the UI gets fully realized in the persistent universe, that the mouse and keyboard is our focus right now during development. But Chris has stated many times, as of many developers, including Rob just a few minutes ago, joystick users, HOTAS users, dual stick users, and of course gamepad users will not be forgotten.
I think it's from a developer's point of view, we understand that the majority of players are using mouse and keyboard, but those that aren't are often some of our most passionate players as well. So we don't want to under-support those just because there's fewer of them. So they're definitely just as important to us.
Well said. My father, my 70-year-old father, is a dual stick pilot. And
awesome.
Trust me, it's if I got to get one more text about a stick with more buttons and better control, he's in fact, I'm realizing maybe he submitted this question because he's also big on the turrets.
Just throw us in some Jiras.
Dad, did you? Maybe this question came from. All right, Rob, I'm gonna let you go, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, take care.
Good speaking to you. Bye.
Bye. All right, thank you so much. Now moving on back to L.A. and our own Bug Smasher, resident Bug Smasher, Mark Aben. We've got a question about ship blocking and criminality and stuff, and he tends to work on that kind of stuff. Mark, how you doing, man?
How's it going?
Yeah, you know,
Criminal what-ality?
Criminality. It's
But
never
to
mind.
be,
I had
to be
something
fair, that cargo box I found was only because they were dead.
It fell off a truck.
It fell off a truck. It fell off a truck. It's mine now.
All right. I got a question for you. We've had the crime system that we've had in place since 2.0 has always been an intermediate a step. We know that that's we've talked about it on Calling All Devs before. How it's not the implementation of the reputation system and everything that we want with different reputations in different areas and stuff like that. Recently, we put ship locking in there, the ability to lock your ship. This question states that ship locking mechanics are still not working properly. Why is it that players defending their property when someone else marches in and takes it are getting penalized for it, and what can be done for them rather than just slap a 4-star crime stat on them?
And I'm out. No. Well, it's that age-old thing where when you try to get out a release, you have to do a very basic implementation to do a subset of features. And one of those, it was, if we have a ship, we wanted to make sure to solve the problem that someone can't just go and run up onto the platform and steal it. So we made sure to lock the ship to you and only to you. And then as more stuff came on with the group system, we extended it out to allow other people to take control of it. But it's one of those things where you start working with a little system here and a little system here, and they don't link together until you throw the problem at a designer and they go, okay, I see the whole big picture. I want to connect it here, here, and here, and here. And the good news is we have thrown this issue at some designers, and they have picked out a way to solve this. But we need some systems like the group system, better out faction, and how the player reputation system grows and how you get things and how they interact and then how they talk to subsumption. So we have all these little pieces that are slowly getting built so that we could develop them all on and have them interchange. So the big question is, it's coming. The small question, or I should say the small answer is, we're having these little pieces build, the building blocks are coming so that we can get this interchange working.
We talk a lot about it on this show and other shows about the advantages of having a live game environment in the middle of our development. One of the biggest challenges is having to work with these intermediate systems that can't be fully fleshed out before they go to the players, and then finding the ways that one system on its own works okay and one system on its own works okay, and then when they combine, they tend to have some unintended consequences, and I think that's what the questionnaire is alluding to here.
Oh yeah, and we implement little by little because we don't want to break things, and we don't want to add some weird complex behavior until we know that those things work before we build on top of it. Yes.
So while we have nothing to point to directly right at this moment, this is one of those times where all we can do is say that we're very aware of it. We've got a couple irons in the fire, and as soon as some resources free up and some more systems come online, we hope to have something out for you that'll be a much better experience than what you're having right there with getting crime stat for defending your own ship. All right, Mark, I'll let you get back to work, man.
And if I find a cargo from a dead guy, it's totally mine, right?
I don't think who's going to stop you.
Hey, Jared, I'm going to go get that chicken from you real quick.
My chicken? You're talking about my supermarket. No, I'm not going to show my supermarket chicken on camera.
Why is Jared pass out? Because I wanted his chicken?
My supermarket chicken. Because I'm a fancy person who eats $7 supermarket chicken. All right, now that we've brought my lunch into this thing, I'm really going to let you go, Mark. All right.
See you later.
Later. All right, thanks so much. And now to wrap up this week's show, we are going back to Wimslow, UK, and our own Luke Pressley, Grand Poobah of the Persistent Universe gameplay. Luke, how you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing, Jared?
I'm doing all right. When I say Grand Poobah, that means I forgot your title. Got a question for you. This is one that comes up quite frequently. We're just going to get right into it because I think we got a bit of conversation to go here. It says, once planets start orbiting their stars. Whenever that point happens, for folks who may not watch every single thing we do, that is one of our goals, our wants for Star Citizen, the ability to have functioning orbits in the systems. How will rest stop stations maintain a meaningful position between two planets?
Between two planets.
Yes. I think
I guess
on the trip between Crusader and Hurston,
yes,
how
yeah,
will you
exactly.
ever know where the heck they are if everything is rotating?
I think for now the answer is that they won't maintain a constant meaningful location between the two planets because these things can rotate so vastly different. What we are doing is we've turned to these Lagrangian points, and these are, I'm going to butcher the science, so please go out and look this up in your own time.
Lagrange points, it's two planets, and it's a spot between two giant bodies where the gravitational pull works on both of them. So
the sun and Earth, we have all huge bodies, but example of the Earth is we have these 5 Lagrange points that. Can I share screens? Is that something we can do? Right.
I'm going to trust you on this.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me just close.
It's going to be a meme or something, right?
Okay. This one here.
Florida man incoming in 3, 2. Oh no, it's actual data. Okay.
Okay, so this diagram can do it better than I can try and explain. But the yellow dot is the sun. The blue dot is, in this case, Hurston. Crusader. And these points here are like gravity wells. If you put something there, it will stay there and it will rotate with relative to the planet. So we're kind of using, you see these used a lot in sci-fi, and it tends to be things like, oh, you'll find a wormhole there or something like that. We tend to use them a lot more realistically, I guess. These are like the out-of-town shopping mall of our world. So you're going to find rest stops there and various other things, but we tend to collect asteroids and such. So you'll find clusters of those there. And what that means is while you won't get things kept between two planets, you will get things that rotate between the sun and stuff. So you will always be given lots and lots of points, and enough points to get you out of trouble, as it were. You'll still constantly have to go, okay, at this point in the orbit, where is the best place to jump? Because it used to be this one, but time's passed and we've rotated around, and now actually I have to jump to this one to get there quicker. So because we don't want to take that out of it, we don't want to just continually give you the easiest way, leave it up to you to figure this out. But
when has Star Citizen ever taken the easiest way?
Exactly. So this image I'm showing here is an example of how the Lagrangian points are organized with the current static layout of where these planets are. Blue points here being the Lagrange points of Hurston, yellow points being Crusader's Lagrange points. And what you'll see, if I skip on to the next one, actually, this is if all the planets were aligned along this axis. What you see is that you have a Lagrange point behind the planet, in relation to the sun, and one in front. And these are the weak points. I believe also that the third one is a weak point as well. But the third one down here is on the absolute opposite side of the orbit. And then you get the stronger points here on about 60 degrees either side of where the planet is. And what you can see from this is actually it gives us a really cool get out when it comes to getting stuck. If you imagine you went to a solar system that had one planet and you came out in the wormhole that was on the opposite side here and the planet was behind the sun, you would be absolutely stuck because you can't jump through the sun and there's nothing to jump around it. But these Lagrange points give us that ability to always be able to jump kind of around. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Like, obviously, this means that every planet has these 5 other points that could have rest stops in them, and then probably likely will have rest stops in them. So while you can't jump, you can't keep these things directly between planets, there'll be enough there to get you where you want to go. That's the plan. Obviously, we don't have these things rotating, and we don't have all of them in, because that'd be 20 points for this, because it has 4 planets. We don't have all those spinning around, so it still needs testing, but that's the plan.
All right. That was more than I thought we were going to get, so I don't have anything to add on, Luke. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you get back to work.
No worries. Okay. See you, Jared.
Hey, take care.
Bye.
Well, that about wraps up this week's show. A special thanks to Rob Johnson and Mark Abott and Luke Presley for taking their time to be here on the show with us this week. Remember, you can submit your questions for consideration each and every week up in the thread up on Spectrum. And don't forget to vote. That's the two-pronged plan. Submit your questions. Vote on your questions. We put a new thread up every month to let new questions, more common and current questions, float to the top. So if you voted last time, go in there. There's a whole new crop of questions. I keep it going. So for Calling All Devs, I'm content manager for global video production, Jared Huckabee. Look at my hair. Why is it like this? I got like Conan O'Brien hair. I don't know what's going on. I'll see you next week, everybody.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertsspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.